every generation, there are those who believe in the power of growth. Those who will take the steps that God has called them to take. Ones who see the potential where others see obstacles. And they build where others hesitate. Building a foundation begins with a vision, a God-given dream that stirs our hearts and compels us into action. When God calls us to more, He invites us to be part of creating something eternal that stands strong through every challenge and shines as a testament to His faithfulness. Becoming a builder in God's kingdom means taking that first step of faith, leading by example, and inspiring others to join the journey. It's about more than just construction. It's about building a legacy. If not us, then who? The time is now to believe, to build, and to become. Together, we can shape the future. One brick, one seed, one act of faith at a time.
Church, it is so good to be with you this Sunday morning. All of us have lived a version of this. We have an idea, something that begins in our mind, and not every idea that is in our mind gets to paper or to computer, but some of what we do, the best ideas, we hope, right, move from our mind to a plan. And not everything that makes it to a plan makes it to reality. But the best of what we put down on paper hopefully becomes reality. Thomas Jefferson, who was the third president of the United States, he was fascinated with, even at times in his life, obsessed with architecture. And he has ideas and he put them down on paper. And you can visit his estate, Monticello, which is in Virginia. Thomas Jefferson himself was the architect, even though he had no formal training. We have some of Jefferson's original drawings for you. He actually drew this, an original Monticello. He tore down the first version. He built the building and then tore it down. He built it again. The second Monticello has the signature octagon dome, which makes it recognizable today, unusual and innovative at the time. Another president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, once wrote, more than any historic home in America, listen to this, Monticello speaks to me as an expression of the personality of its builder. What we see in Jefferson is true of any one of us who've ever drawn up a plan to build or put together something, an idea that makes it to a plan that eventually becomes reality. Now, as followers of Jesus, we believe that creativity comes from God. And God Himself is not just creative. The very first lines of the Bible describe God the Father as the what? The creator. We see in the Bible examples of what starts as a vision and then goes down the path of becoming a reality. Look at this, Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 and 3. And the Lord answered me, write the vision. Take what's I've given you in your mind and write it down. Make it plain on tablets so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. If it's from God, it will happen. Come on, church. If it's from God, it will happen. Go to the pages of your New Testament. Paul writes a letter to the church in Ephesus, Ephesians chapter 3, verses 20 and 21. Now to Him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that we ask or imagine. This is a familiar verse to a lot of people in the room. What I want you to grab here and highlight is that it says that we ask or imagine. God has given you the capacity to imagine and create good things. Add on to that his ability. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that we ask, all that we imagine, according to the power that works within us. To him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. God has given you the ability to imagine. And creativity and imagination, you know what? It can be used for negative things. But God has given you the ability to create and imagine good things. And however far our imagine can take us in a good direction, beyond the boundaries of our imagination, beyond the boundaries of what we perceive, what we think, what we understand, beyond the boundaries of our intellect, that's where God begins to work. And when our mind is aligned with God, he gives us vision and imagination for what has not yet happened. But if it is from God, it will come to pass. We start a new series today called Blueprint. Somebody say Blueprint. Blueprint actually comes from the 1800s, long before there were photocopy machines. People who drew plans for buildings and drew plans for machines, they wanted a way to replicate technical drawings without having to start again and redraw the same drawing by hand to create copies for additional people who needed it. So someone developed a way that you could, using a technology, make technical copies, and it came out blue, so it became blueprints. Using actual blueprints is outdated and obsolete. We don't really use blueprints anymore because we have computers and technology, but we still use the word. And so for this series, here's the definition that we're building on. A blueprint is an early plan or design that explains how something might be achieved. Today and over the next 3 weeks, our plan is to present to you vision for the church. We want to invite you to hear this, to pray about this, and to become part of the journey. I want to give a special shout out to those of you who come to prayer meeting on Wednesday nights. I've said this before, if you really want to know what's happening in the church, you come to prayer meeting. What we're going to be talking about today and over the next 3 weeks, if you come to prayer meeting, a lot of what we're going to say, you're going to think, oh, I've already heard that, because we have been already praying about this for many months before we reach this point where we're talking about it on Sunday morning. Some of the vision pieces that we're going to talk about, they involve construction and building, but not everything. Some of the pieces will require resources and finances that, you know what, we don't have right now. But not everything that we're going to talk about requires money. Here's the thing. All of what we are about to talk about today and over the next 3 weeks, all of what we talk about will need the right people to be led by God to respond in the right moment. Everything that we're going to talk about will require the right people to be led by God to respond in the right moment. Now, whenever we even use the word construction or building, maybe it's just me, I go to questions like, well, how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost? I want you to hear this today. I'm calling this church today to a faith journey, not a financial journey. I'm calling us to a faith journey, not a financial journey. If God is in this and if he's leading this to happen, let's be part of the ride. There will be a time when we will talk about specific plans and timelines and numbers, but detailed dates and numbers are not ready because we're just bringing this to the church family today. So I'm asking you, don't get in front of me. If you're new this week, you're here on a great week because you get a window into where we believe we are headed as a church. Today's message is called Prosperity of the City. Let's say it together. Prosperity of the City. And this message title comes right out of the Bible. Here's where it comes from. Centuries before Jesus, in the Old Testament book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah writes to a Jewish culture that is living as a less than class. They're living as foreigners in Babylon. They are foreigners living in a culture that is at odds with their faith. They're struggling with uncertainty. They're longing for something else. They're longing for home. As Jesus followers, on the pages of the New Testament, we are told that our home is actually where? Our home is in heaven. But yet here we are in a culture that is often at odds with what we value, that is often at odds with our faith. So we can connect with the hearts of the Jewish people thousands of years ago who were longing for something other than where they were at the moment. Jeremiah, with a message from God, he gives the people instructions surrounding how to live in the land. Remember, they're wanting something different, but he says this: build homes, plan to stay. And for some of them, that's exactly the opposite of what they want to hear. And as Jeremiah unfolds these instructions, the timeline of how long they're going to stay becomes longer. Build homes, plan to stay. Then he says, plant gardens. And then eat the food that the gardens produce. The timeline is getting longer. He says, get married. He says, have children. The timeline's getting longer. Then he says, find spouses for your kids so that you can have grandchildren. Jeremiah says, multiply, do not dwindle away. God is acknowledging, and this may be as much for you today as it was for them then, maybe there's something in you that you're longing for something different, you're longing for somewhere else. But God may be saying, for this moment in history, this is where you are. This is where you are planted. My wife, Jennifer, and our 4 kids, we moved to Salem, Oregon from Greendale, Wisconsin 4 years ago. And God planted us here for this season, And I believe those of us who call this our church home, for whatever season, however long God would choose for this season to be, God has planted us here for this season. So, after saying these things like build homes, plant gardens, find spouses for your kids, multiply, Jeremiah says this, Jeremiah 29:7. This is where we get the title of today's message. Also, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have called you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, catch this, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Jeremiah says to them then and to us now, your city should be better because you're in it. I want that to be true of my life, and I want it to be true of this church. When it comes to your life, your neighborhood should be better because you're in it. Your school should be better because you're in it. Your workplace should be better because you're in it. And it's not because of how amazing you are, even though you're amazing, but it's because Christ who lives within you. I believe that People's Church makes Salem a better place. I believe our city is better because People's Church is here. As we live in our vision to know Christ and to make him known. And that's our mission, to live in our vision to be a Christ-centered community, growing spiritually, thriving households. God has blessed us with a tremendous location here on Lancaster Drive. Between 10 a.m. gathering and when we started here, someone came up to me and said, you know why I came to this church? I was driving down Lancaster and I told the Lord, this man was telling me, I told the Lord, I've just moved to Salem. I don't want to church hop. I want the first church that I walk into to become my church home. I drove by People's Church, I came in, it has been my home for 7 years, this man told me. That's good, that's good. See, we desire for this to be a vibrant location where we welcome those who are pursuing God, gather to worship, grow in faith, and build lasting relationships. Now, I get a kick out of it every time we get to bring out the archive film video. I'm so glad we have this. Jay Greer, you brought me a box of film and you said, I don't know what's in this film, but I hope you can use it. Well, this is that film. We have a 72-year history of looking forward. This is not 72 years old. This is from the 1960s, though. And what you see, that's Pastor Versalenko. He is leading a charge. He is leading the congregation in the 1960s to build what would become our third address, our third location on Summer Street. We have a legacy of building a church. We have a legacy of being a church family that wants to make room for those who are not here yet. When the congregation, we were called Central Assembly of God back then, when they built that location on Summer Street, it wasn't for the people who were already there. It was because they believed that there needed to be room for more and for those who were not there yet. So there you see the church family. That brother doesn't have a shirt on. It must have been hot out that day. How many of you were here when we were Central Assembly of God on Summer Street? Let me see some hands in the room. Wow, that's good. That's good. The church bought this land where we're sitting today. They bought this in the early 1970s, but it wouldn't be until 1978 that this location was completed. The church congregation, they built this building. Members of the church ran electrical wire, installed plumbing. It wasn't just contractors up on the roof, it was people from the church. That roof is that roof. And some of you who are here today, you participated sacrificially, even helped to build the building that we're sitting in right now. Those of you who have been part of this church in our history over the decades, we want to honor you. We want to honor you by saying, we want the same for the future that you wanted back then. We want to continue to make room for those who are not here yet. If you were here then, you have a story to tell. In fact, some have come up to me today and after previous gatherings and said, I saw a family member in that video. I was there. I remember that moment. I was there. Some of you have a story to tell, a testimony of how you participated either in building or giving sacrificially to see this room happen where we're sitting right now. You have a story to tell. Now, this may be selfish, but I don't just want you to have a story to tell. I want a story to tell. And in 1978, I wasn't even born yet. I want you to have a story to tell about how God moved through this church family, not just back then, but today, to see the reach of People's Church expand farther and wider to reach those who are not here yet. Now, we have a legacy of understanding this. The church is not the building. The people are the church. The church is not the building, but listen to this. The building sends a message to the community about the church. The church is not the building, but the building sends a message about the church. How we feel about our city, about our intentionality toward the city. The secular world gets the idea that buildings on the outside and the inside send a message to the others in the city. Ian Schrager, who is a real estate and hotel developer, says buildings are like people. They send out a message, whether they mean to or not. If the message is not compelling, people will walk away. Our building sends a message. And so the question that we're wrestling with today is, what is the message that we want our building to send? When we bring in guests, what do we want them to experience? Do you know if you are here for the first time today, you have fresher perspective on this campus than the rest of us? Because you're seeing everything for the first time. You're experiencing everything for the first time. For those of us who have been around for a while, when we bring guests here, what do we want them to experience? I want to take a moment to honor. We have an incredible team. We have an incredible team that every day of the week, they are here caring for this campus to make sure that it continues to be in great shape. They work hard. Can we just take a moment to show appreciation for our maintenance and grounds team that keeps this building looking so great? The original parts of this building, including where you're sitting right now, dates back more than 40 years. And over the years, a lot has been replaced, a lot has been redone. We've added on, we've tweaked, we've updated. Some of you remember when this carpet was orange. Those were the days. But of all the things, I had a moment. I had a moment with our sliding divider classroom doors. These, we believe, date back to the 1980s. And this is on the second floor of our kids area. And the kids team came and said, can we replace the sliding doors? There comes a point where I think we've got our money out of them. Our money's worth. The report to me was, and I invite you to go and we can try this together. The doors have become very difficult to close. And once someone in the kids department just said amen. Once you get the doors closed and latch them, it's really hard to open them back up again. You know. So the kids team said, do you think that could we replace the sliding divider door walls? Well, let's get a bid. The bid came back because there's multiple rooms. The bid came back and is tens of thousands of dollars. And add that on top of other requests, and every request was tens of thousands or more than $100,000. And I felt like we needed to talk with our board, talk with the church leadership team, and say, before we just continue down this path of $10,000 here, $30,000 there, $80,000 there, $100,000+ there, let's just put a hold on everything that's not essential. And let's really pray about how we can steward the faithful and generous giving of God's people. And instead of just doing this here and this there and moving that and tearing down this and reopening, let's make a master plan. Let's make a master plan and determine what the priorities are and move one step in a direction of seeing that big plan come to reality. So a conversation about replacing slider divider walls led to, let's talk about everything. And you know what? Some of you in this room, you would say, I've been there, done that. Because you were looking at your kitchen and you said, let's replace these handles. And before you know it, the whole kitchen is torn up. Some of you have experienced this in your bathroom. Let's replace the sink. And now the whole bathroom, you can't use it right now because it's in a state of being renovated. But what you decided to do is that one piece actually needed to be part of a larger vision. So there has been some crazy conversations over the last months. There's been things that have come up like, should we find a new address and start completely over? The church has done that 3 times. This is our 4th location. Should we, not tomorrow, but at some point over the next 5 to 10 years, be thinking about tearing down a portion of the building and building a portion of the building back up where it sits now? Through the process, we connected with an organization called Visioneering Studios. It's a company with a great story. It was started many years ago by a former Disney Imagineer who loves Jesus and wanted to bring some of the great things that he learned from Disney about buildings and how to engage people and bring that into the church world. And through that, our discovery process, it became clear that we have plenty of square footage under our roof. And we can do a lot with the space that we already have. And we actually can make our money go a lot farther if we reimagine our existing spaces instead of starting something brand new. So we also, I believe God has really opened our eyes to the reality that God has given us an incredible strategic location here on Lancaster Drive. Think about this. We have frontage on one of the busiest streets in Salem. So really we have frontage on one of the busiest streets in the whole state of Oregon. And also we are surrounded on all sides by one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in the state, meaning that there are thousands of people who have easy access to our current address. So bring all those things together. And our blueprint is to improve our Lancaster location, to expand the capacity, usability, and safety of the children's areas, to reimagine spaces for teenagers and young adults, to make it easier to move through the building, to enhance existing environments, to better cultivate community, and update some bathrooms. Some more amens. I want to show you some artist renderings, some architectural renderings to give you a vision for what might come to pass. And here's what I think, or I might think if I was looking at these for the first time and I had not been involved in the planning. Oh, there it is. Let's just take a minute. The longer you've been here, the more you might have questions or thoughts or ideas, and I want to hear all of them. But let's just take a moment to soak in the thought of what could be. What can we do on the outside to make it clearer that we want to welcome you inside? What can we do to make it even more obvious where to enter? How our location is already welcoming. How can we make it more welcoming? And language that we've been using is, what can we do on the outside to extend a front porch to our community? I want to show you existing north doors on our campus. So you see that there are a few sets of doors there on the north side of the building. These doors are along a hallway in our kids' area. And that's all that's on the other side, as a hallway. For the most part, these doors are used as emergency exits or service doors to the kids' area. I want to show you what our vision is for this space. Ooh. Yeah, that's good. Thanks for clapping. The vision is to update and improve this area so that it's more than just a set of doors. It's a family entrance. Any one of you, as a parent or grandparent or neighbor, if you have brought in the diaper bag and the stroller and all that, I actually see a stroller back there, you know that the path can be long to get from the parking lot to the kids' area. So what happens when this becomes a reality is that there is parking that's right there, and families can park right by this entrance, go right into a check-in spot that is right by the doors, and move the kids into the nursery, into the preschool, into the elementary kids' areas. And here's why that's important. We get to be together for really what are only amount to precious minutes each week. And we want to make the most out of every minute that we are together, every minute that you are on the campus. And so the less time that you spend walking all over the place, the quicker that we can get everyone into their environments, the more ministry that takes place. Faster, more convenient check-in means kids get to their environments quicker and get more out of the minutes that they're with us on Sundays. Now take a look at the inside. This is right outside these sanctuary doors. This is one of my favorite spaces on our campus. It's tall, it's roomy. I love the wood ceiling. It's a great place to see people who you know, meet new people, give me feedback on the sermon, all those things. What you don't know by just standing here is that on the other side of these walls, top floor and bottom, there's actually 2 floors. On the other side of these walls, what's not immediately obvious is that the kids' areas are right on the other side of those walls. Yet it's not clear at this point where the kids' area begins. Let me show you our vision for what can be. Like a quarter of you are clapping. The rest of you are trying to figure out what's different. And the new people are like, I don't even know where that is. So what you see here, where it says PC Kids, that's a wall right now. And the idea is that we take what is now a dead end and turn it into a threshold that makes it very clear that you are now in the people's kids area. And if you combine that with the family entrance, and I want those of you who ever walked in here with kids or grandkids to imagine you could come in the family entrance, get your kids into their spaces, and come right through that tunnel and into the area where you are sitting now. Now you all can clap. Okay, now I get it. We turn a dead end into a threshold for the next generation. Practically, it gives all of us, every generation, it gives all of us much easier passageway from the east end to the west end of the building. And this is a little bit insider, but those of you who know the building know that the kids area becomes secured. This will allow us to keep the kids areas safe and secure, but continuing to allow a passageway from east to west throughout all of our activities. Let me show you a few more pictures from projects that are now completed that Visioneering has worked on, some in California, Bismarck, North Dakota, and Dallas, Texas. These are completed projects. One of the specialties that Visioneering brings to the conversation is that they have become known for reimagining existing spaces. what I want you to see is that we can do a lot by updating existing spaces. It is far more cost-effective than tearing down and starting over or starting from scratch. What can we do to make sure what's been true in the past is true in the present and remains true in the future? That every room is a place where your kids and grandkids look forward to entering. That every room is a place where Dream Team volunteers look forward to serving. We want each room to send a message. I know exactly who this room is for, and you don't even have to say any words. This year, for example, during our 10 a.m. gathering, our average number of kids who we're serving from nursery to 5th grade, our average at 10 o'clock right now is 190 kids. That's good. So that's the average. That's the average, meaning that there are some Sundays that we have many more than that. And here's what we're experiencing. If you're a kids Dream Teamer, you already know this. There are some rooms that are already at or very close to capacity. And yet that there are other rooms that are very much underutilized, and it's not a shortage of square footage, it's just how things are laid out and also their location. So here's the thing, we expand the capacity not by building a lot more, but by making existing spaces more functional. There's one more thing I want to tell you about before we go. I want you to look at a 1 mile radius of the church, 1 mile in any direction of the church. Within 1 mile of the church, the population, according to the US Census, is more than 23,000 people and growing. That's more people than a lot of entire cities in the state of Oregon. Within 1 mile of the church, more than 23,000 people. And of those 23,000 plus, according to the US Census, almost 7,000 of those people are age 18 or younger. It is estimated that there are nearly 7,000 children under age 18 who live within 1 mile of the church. And as we are seeing more and more apartments being built within 1 mile of the church, what we also know is that we are becoming increasingly a neighborhood where there are more kids who have very limited access to outdoor play spaces. Now, I want to show you something. This is from Google Earth, and we're going to zoom in. You may not even realize this about our campus. In the back, we have a giant field. And you can actually see on the left side the outline of what used to be a softball diamond. There is enough room for 2 full-size softball fields on that field in the back. The softball player in the room loves that. That's good. There's no more softball fields. It hasn't been used for softball in a long time. We do use the fields for outdoor things like summer adventure day camp, outdoor kids and youth activities. Our Ranger boys will go out there, girls ministries go out there. Over the years, the field has been used for soccer teams, by soccer teams, for practices and games. But we believe that we can take this to the next level. So here is our vision for the backyard. So the vision here is for an all-season, all-weather turf surface field. If you have kids or grandkids who play sports, outdoor sports, you know that when we get into rainy season, which is going to begin any time now, outdoor natural grass fields become often unusable because they get really muddy. So we believe we can serve our current church, we can serve our neighborhood, and we can even serve city youth sports leagues by having an all-weather, all-season outdoor turf field. You can see on the left the idea for a playground and imaginary play spaces where leaders can bring kids outside on good weather days, and we can do outdoor activities to connect with our neighborhood. Again, some people have already given me ideas. Someone said you should put a splash pad back there. You know what? Nothing's in stone yet. What you do see is a multi-use sport court with basketball hoops. And to my pickleball people in the house, I want you to look closely because we said we want some pickleball lines on that outdoor court. The pickleball people said amen. I do love the storage containers that we have on the backfield right now. And if you love the storage containers, you may be dismayed because we want to replace them with an outdoor field house and storage area on the left side of the screen there. One of my favorite parts of this whole idea for the backyard is something that may not even be immediately obvious, and actually I may need to point it out to you for you to even see it. It's in the center, and right now it is illustrated as a black arch. That is a park entrance into the neighborhood. So right now, that is a fence. That is a fence that stretches across that area. And the idea for a park entrance is to send the message loud and clear to our neighborhood. This is not a place that we are trying to keep you out of. This is a place where we want to welcome you in. East to west, north to south, we have a heart that as a result of these improvements, that we will send the message to our neighborhood that we want to make this just as easy to get here on foot as it is to get here by car. Some of you, you can't help yourself. You're thinking, how much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? I'll go back to what I told you in the beginning. The whole thought behind this, instead of taking one piece project at a time, the idea has been, let's make a master plan. Let's prioritize and make sure that when we're spending tens of thousands, when we're spending hundreds of thousands, and some of you, you already know this is going to be a multi-million-dollar project. But we are going to stretch by faith over time, believing that as it is God's direction, it will come to pass. And it's not just one package number. There will be the costs of things like construction. There will be costs for updating furniture. Some of you have sat on some chairs that are older than you are, and you're like, we could use a new chair in this room. Amen, let's get the new chairs. And we're not talking about one phase. We're believing for things that will happen as God prioritizes, things that will happen in multiple phases. So the request of you today is that you would simply begin to pray with us together, that we would pray as a church family. What will be our church priority for the first phase? At some point, there will be numbers and plans to release. And at that point, the project will move at the speed of generosity. But as we get going, the message today is that this project, this vision will move at the speed of prayer. It will move at the speed of prayer. So I want to give you some prayer points. I would encourage you, if you've got your phone with you, to just take your phone out and take a picture of this if you'd say, I want to start praying with you, Pastor. Pray for creativity and wisdom in developing the plans. Pray for provision, funding, resources, and labor. Pray for openness in our neighborhood for greater relationship with the church. Pray for new families to fill renovated spaces. Pray for wisdom in selecting contractors and vendors to complete the project. And pray for favor with authorities who will provide the right approvals. So you may be thinking, well, what can I do now? What can I do now? The greatest call of the church is the call to pray. It's not supplemental, it's foundational. Pray, and listen to this. My ask of you is that you would pray, Lord, how can I be personally involved? Remember I said that all the vision that we're going to talk about today and over the next 3 weeks will require the right people to be led by God to respond in the right moment. So I'm asking you, would you begin to pray, Lord, begin to stir in my heart, in the heart of our family, the heart of our household, how are you leading us to be personally involved? Second thing, practically, I want to invite you to take a tour with me, highlighting the current opportunities and needs that we have. If you were to use this QR code, it will take you right now to a place where you can sign up. There are 5 tours that are scheduled. Each tour is limited to 30 people because I want to give you plenty of opportunity to share your ideas. I want you to hear the heart in a question and answer, small group format. So I want to invite you to take a tour, one of the tours that will happen later this month and into October. And then I really want to emphasize, this is not a day about financial giving. And at the same time, I know that there are those among us that you like to be part of being a catalyst, being a person who propels something forward from the very beginning. And so I am praying that before we get to any sort of big financial ask or request, that there might be some from the church who would step forward and say, I want to give you a seed. I want to give this church a seed so that we can have a catalyst finances and seed that is already in place before we go to any big ask of the church. The blueprint: expand the capacity, usability, and safety of the children's areas. Reimagine spaces for teenagers and young adults. Make it easier to move through the building. Enhance existing environments to better cultivate community. We want God's plan to be our plan. Do you remember what FDR said about Monticello and Jefferson? More than any historic home in America, Monticello speaks to me as an expression of the personality of its builder. It is our desire that as we move forward in a master plan vision, that the improvements that we pursue will be an expression of our personality, which is a love for the city, but more importantly, an expression of God's love for the city. Do you know the pages of the New Testament use construction language? That Jesus is spoken of as the cornerstone. That's construction language. Psalm 127:1 says, unless the Lord builds the house. Do you know how this finishes? Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. So today and every Sunday in this 4-week series, my ask of you, I'm asking you to pledge to pray, to pledge to pray. If it is from God, it will happen. God, through this journey, may we see a move that is undeniably you. It's a challenging prayer. It's a challenging prayer. Lord, begin to stir in my heart. What are you calling me individually to do? As God gives testimony to the church, those who choose to be involved, God will give testimony to you. Even as we were worshiping today, God brought to my mind the conversation that Mordecai had with Esther. Do you remember this? Mordecai actually tells Esther, God's people will be preserved. Like God's plan is going to come to pass. You have a choice about whether or not you're going to be involved. If you Mordecai tells his relative Esther, if you choose not to be involved, if it's from God, it's still going to come to pass. But Mordecai urges Esther to be involved with that famous phrase, for such a time as this. As this is God's vision, as he continues to reveal it to us, as he reveals numbers and plans and timing, he will give testimony to the church. And also he will give testimony to the households who choose to be involved. We all can't do everything. That's not God's plan. God gave the idea of the local church, where all of us have different things to bring to the table. And as we talk about this today and over the next 3 weeks, I believe that God is going to give you specific things. Maybe it's one area. It could be multiple areas. And something is going to happen as the Spirit lives inside of you that you're going to be compelled to be involved if you have the openness in your heart to do that.